The HR folder wasn't thick, just smug. Laminated cover, plastic spine, no logo, just a white label with my name and the words Final Review Package in tight blue ink. It sat there between me and Darren, Director of Operations, like a quiet dare. He didn't open it. He didn't have to. I'd already rewritten the contents of half the projects inside. "You got a hell of a resume," he said, smoothing the front of his shirt like he was about to speak at a wedding instead of lay someone off. I blinked at him once, twice. No smile. "So that's the problem?" He laughed, too loud for the glass meeting room. "Well, yeah." I wasn't supposed to land at Cambertech. When I left my last role, senior systems manager at a mid-sized logistics firm, I thought I'd be taking a sabbatical. 6 to 8 months, maybe longer. My dad had passed, my marriage was hanging by a thread, and I'd been commuting from Milwaukee to Sheboygan every week for 5 years without a single raise. I was burned out, resentful, and sick of making other people's workflows more efficient just so they could take credit in the Monday stand-ups. But sitting still turned out to be worse. The quiet of the house, once the kids were at school, felt like someone had pulled the batteries out of my life. So I started applying. Not to VPs or senior director positions. No, I wanted something quiet, stable. Project coordinator, maybe mid-level IT. I told myself it was strategic, that I'd be less stressed, that I'd finally get time to breathe. Cambertech called within 48 hours. The recruiter's name was Jenny, and she said they were absolutely thrilled with my background. The role? Technical documentation specialist. Pay wasn't amazing, but better than expected for that title. Benefits were decent. Work was remote with optional hybrid. The team sounded small but competent. I figured, why not? By my second week, I knew I'd made a mistake. My desk was near the kitchen in the co-working space Cambertech rented on State Street. No nameplate, just a shared hot desk with a fake plant and a monitor that buzzed faintly when you opened Google Docs. My manager was a guy named Leo, mid-30s, wire-rimmed glasses, always smelled like dryer sheets and hummus. On day one, he handed me a packet of software manuals and said, "These are a mess. You'll get the hang of our voice eventually." He hadn't written a single one of them. That was a recurring pattern. See, technical documentation at Cambertech wasn't just documentation. It was bug triage, UX testing, back-end code commentary, onboarding guides, internal wikis, customer service scripts, and occasionally rewriting other people's Slack messages so they sounded less condescending. I'm not exaggerating. By the end of my first month, I'd rewritten onboarding flows for 3 separate teams, corrected 5 broken Jira workflows, consolidated their design library, and quietly drafted a new help center taxonomy for the product suite, because the old one referenced a feature they'd deprecated in 2019. No one had time. Everyone had excuses. "Yeah, but you're good at this," they'd say, or "Let's just have Mike clean it up, he gets it." Or Leo's favorite, "Can you do a pass on this first? Then we'll send it out." By month 3, I was sitting in product roadmap meetings without a title change. People started CCing me on things like potential pivot messaging and compliance doc review. I was the only one who knew how to use the CMS and the only one who understood the internal dashboard schema, and I was still officially a specialist. No one asked me how I felt about that. The first time I pushed back, it was subtle. We were prepping a new support flow for the app's live chat module, and the draft they gave me was frankly insulting. Half the links were dead. The tone sounded like it was written by a chatbot in 2012, and the fallback escalation said, "If no one answers, try again tomorrow." I brought it up in Slack. "Mike, hey, just looping back on this doc, do we really want to say try again tomorrow for a product that claims 24/7 support?" Leo left me on red. 5 hours later, I got a DM from someone on the customer experience team. Tara, can you just fix it? Leo said you're good with tone. Me. I'm good with strategy too. This is a trust issue for users. Tara. Noted. But we need to launch tonight. Me. Then we should fix the product, not the words. Tara. They launched anyway. I rewrote the doc under a shared login to remove my name. No one noticed. You might think I was being stubborn, that I should have just coasted. But here's the thing. I used to be that guy, the one who coasted, smiled through the meetings, took the W when it was handed over, even if the game was rigged. And then I watched a guy I trained become my boss because he was better with optics. I promised myself I'd never do invisible labor again. But invisible labor has a way of finding you when you're competent and quiet. The turning point was a Monday morning in late September. I'd spent the weekend rewriting the internal security FAQ after the CTO flagged it for being dense. He never said who wrote it originally, but I recognized the file owner. It was Darren. Yes, the same Darren from HR who would later hand me the review folder. At the time, Darren was VP of Operations, and I assumed he had better things to do than copy-paste internal security documentation from outdated vendor sheets. Apparently not. I rewrote it from scratch. 10 pages. Clean headers, bulletproof tone, links tested, policy references matched to the latest SOC2 framework. I even ran it past a friend who worked in compliance for a bank. I submitted it Sunday night, thinking I'd get a "thanks, this is great," or maybe, just maybe, a Slack emoji reaction. Instead, I got a meeting invite. Subject, review plus next steps, from Darren Lewis. Time Monday, 9:30 a.m. Attendees, Darren, Leo, you. That's when my stomach sank. Darren opened the call with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I wanted to touch base on your recent edits, he said, tapping a pen against his notepad. You clearly went above and beyond. That's both appreciated and a bit concerning. I waited. He leaned forward. Mike, how do you see yourself here long term? I blinked. I was under the impression this was a long-term role. Leo nodded like he was trying to look neutral. It's just that sometimes when people contribute at a higher level, it creates certain expectations. Expectations? What? I repeated. From other team members, Darren clarified. Not everyone is operating at your level, and that can shift dynamics. I looked at Leo. He didn't meet my eyes. Is this about the security doc? I asked. Darren exhaled. Among other things. What things? He paused, just long enough to make it feel intentional. We've noticed you taking initiative across multiple departments. That's not always scalable. I almost laughed. So you're telling me doing my job well is the issue? Mike, he said gently, you're overqualified. That was the moment I realized they'd never intended to promote me. I wasn't a threat exactly, but I was a mirror. Every half-finished ticket, every document I cleaned, every process I streamlined reminded them how sloppy things had gotten. And nobody likes the guy holding the mirror, especially when he doesn't smile while he does it. I left that meeting numb. No outburst, no dramatics. Just walked to the kitchen, poured myself stale coffee, and sat at the hot desk while someone from marketing practiced a pitch call 2 feet away. At 11:32, I opened a new Google Doc. Title, Project Journal, Week 14. Then I started writing down everything. Not just tasks, but timestamps, names, email threads, Slacks, screenshots, file versions, CMS entries, a log, a trail. Because if they were going to call me overqualified, I was going to show them exactly what that meant. It took me 3 days to start labeling the Google Doc the ghost file. I didn't name it that out of paranoia. Not at first. I named it that because by Wednesday, I'd started to realize how invisible my footprint had become. Every team meeting, every doc I touched, every ticket I rewrote, it all lived under someone else's name. The shared logins, the generic edit histories, the group author tags. It wasn't just me being left out of the story. I was being erased from it on purpose. It started with the dashboard taxonomy I'd rebuilt. Back in week 7, I'd reorganized our internal analytics tool after realizing none of the filters worked. The structure was so bloated that even the interns joked about clicking all time just to get the damn thing to load. I took 3 nights to audit every single category, cleaned the data sets, rewrote the labels, and sent a full index with recommendations to Leo. No one had asked me to do it. I did it because it was impossible to onboard new hires without a functioning dashboard. Fast forward to now. I found the same dashboard structure in a new product team guide, but my name was nowhere on it. Not even a footnote. The author, Tara. From customer experience. The one who'd told me to just fix it when the chat support script fell apart. "You're overqualified," Darren had said. What he meant was, "You make the rest of us look like we're standing still." That's not a brag. It's just the quiet truth of what happens when you've done this job for 20 years. And the people above you think bullet points are deliverables and design is a mood board. I didn't come into Camber Tech to shine. I came to heal. I came to rest. But when the boat's already sinking, you can't sit still. You grab a bucket or you drown with the crew. So I grabbed a bucket. I fixed things. And apparently, that made me the enemy. The ghost file became my second job. Every day after work, I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of peppermint tea and scrolled back through every revision history I could find. Week 4. Edited client success welcome email draft. Added onboarding checklist. Corrected 7 grammar errors. Original author now listed as Team CX. Week 6. Rewrote Jira ticket templates for product. Final version uploaded by Leo. No co-author noted. Week 9. Added 3 workflow diagrams to internal wiki. Now published under Engineering Team. Every bullet point in that file was a breadcrumb, a reminder, a boundary. I didn't have a plan yet. I just knew I wasn't crazy, and I needed proof. One night, my wife, Elise, looked up from her laptop and asked, "Why don't you just quit?" We were sitting in bed, both of us working past 10 again. She taught middle school math in Wauwatosa, union contract, tenure, stable, exhausting. "I could," I said, "but they'd win." She closed her laptop. "What would they win?" I thought about it. "Control," I said, "of the story. If I walk now, they'll tell themselves I wasn't a fit, that I couldn't handle it, that I bailed before the next phase." Elise sighed. "That sounds exhausting." "It is." And it was. But something deeper than pride was keeping me there. Maybe it was the grief from losing my dad that I hadn't dealt with. Maybe it was the lingering guilt over missing my daughter's ballet recital because I was stuck debugging a finance report last year. Or maybe I just wanted a clean ending, a reckoning. Quiet, calm, undeniable. The trigger came during Q4 planning. It was a Thursday, late October. Leaves were starting to scatter across the sidewalk outside, the co-working space, and you could feel the wind creep through the windows even when they were closed. Leo had invited me to a light strategy sync. That's how he framed it. Light. Just the two of us and a whiteboard that still had the last team's revenue targets ghosted on it in dry erase marker. He walked in carrying 2 cold brews and a folder I didn't recognize. "Thought we could whiteboard some of the roadmap dependencies," he said, handing me a marker. I nodded, wrote product integrations at the top. He watched for a second, then opened the folder. Inside were 6 printed emails, all from me. Specifically, 6 Slack threads and Gmail follow-ups I'd sent in the last few weeks flagging system errors, broken flows, outdated metrics, and one particularly tone-deaf marketing asset that went out with the wrong product name. Some folks feel your tone has been a little sharp, Leo said, like he was reporting the weather. I stared at the papers. Is this a performance review? He shook his head. No, just a conversation. I waited. He fidgeted. It's just that when you step in too often, it can feel like you don't trust the team. I blinked. Do you trust the team? He froze. Because if I don't flag these things, I said quietly, they go live broken. And you know that. That dashboard taxonomy, the one you presented last week, that was mine. I did that. And you presented it like it was internal collaboration. Leo looked down. I wasn't angry. I was done. You ever gonna promote me? I asked. Calm, flat. He didn't answer. That told me everything. I called Elise from the parking garage that night. It's time, I said. She didn't ask what I meant. By Monday, I had a version of the ghost file ready to send. It wasn't just a list. It was a story. Chronological, annotated, screenshots, metadata, email headers. A narrative of 3.5 months of labor misattributed, initiatives claimed, errors corrected without acknowledgement. All of it time-stamped, all of it cross-verified. I'd even pulled the Slack export from the data privacy portal. My plan wasn't to go scorched earth. I didn't want to torch the place, but I did want my name back. The first draft of my email read, Hi Darren. Per our recent conversations, I've compiled a document of my contributions across departments, including systems, UX, customer experience, and compliance. I believe this reflects a higher level of impact than my current title acknowledges. I deleted it. Instead, I wrote, Hi Darren. I've attached a document outlining my contributions to the org over the past 4 months. I believe it speaks for itself. If there's alignment, I'm open to discussing a title change and path forward. If not, I'm happy to hand off documentation cleanly. Simple. No emotion. Just fact. I sent it at 8:03 a.m. The read receipt hit at 8:17. Then silence. 2 days later, I was called into a recalibration meeting. Same glass room, same folder. After reviewing your materials, Darren began, we've decided to sunset the documentation specialist role. I didn't flinch. I'd already read the writing on the whiteboard. We'll be offering you a transition package, Vishasan, he added. 3 months severance, non-disparagement clause, standard NDA. I flipped the folder open. Legalese, boilerplate. A number at the bottom that was lower than I deserved, but higher than I expected. Darren watched me sign it without blinking. Thanks, he said, rising to shake my hand. It's unfortunate. You were just too advanced for the scope of the role. I looked at him, calm. No, I said. You just didn't want to admit I did it better than the people you pay more. He didn't argue. I walked out carrying nothing but the folder. No farewell email, no Slack goodbye, no box of desk stuff. My entire Cambertech career lived on shared drives I'd built myself and wasn't allowed to touch anymore. I got home before lunch. Elise had just started grading papers. She looked up when I walked in. Did it happen? She asked. I nodded. She didn't say I'm sorry. She didn't need to. She just poured me a cup of coffee, sat beside me at the kitchen table, and said, So what's next? I smiled, the first real one in weeks. I think I'm going to tell the truth, I said. All of it. I didn't expect anyone to care after I left. Not really. Maybe a few quiet Slack messages. You were always solid. Not sure why they let you go. That kind of thing. Polite regrets sent too late. But Cambertech wasn't that kind of place. There were no lifers, no loyalty. The kind of company where people didn't remember your kid's name, but they'd remember if you broke a dashboard filter. Still, I logged into LinkedIn that Friday out of habit, and that's where I saw it. Leo had posted an announcement. Excited to welcome a fresh perspective to our content ops team. We're restructuring to focus on scalable collaboration across departments, streamlining voice, tone, and compliance from a unified lens. Big things ahead. No mention of the layoffs. No mention of my role being dissolved. Just vague restructuring nonsense. And then this. Grateful to have worked alongside some truly talented contributors over the past quarter. Your fingerprints are on everything we do. Contributors. Like I was a guest star on someone else's show. That's when something in me clicked. I didn't want revenge. I wasn't angry, not in the classic sense, but I did want a reckoning. Something clean, something that didn't involve lawyers or rage posts. Just the truth, laid out in plain language, where the right people might actually see it. So I started writing. It began as a medium draft. No fanfare, no hashtags. Just a blank title line and a body that opened with, I worked at a mid-sized tech company this year. My official role was technical documentation specialist. In reality, I was the guy they handed broken things to, quietly, unofficially, invisibly. I kept it anonymous at first. No names, no company title, no direct quotes. But I included the receipts, anonymized screenshots, Slack timestamps, file audit trails. I described the dashboard overhaul, the rewritten support flows, the restructured internal wiki, all of it with timeframes and outcomes. The heart of the post wasn't bitterness, it was a question. What happens when companies mistake underemployment for a lack of ambition? I hit publish on a Sunday morning while my kids were making pancakes in the kitchen. By noon, it had 400 views. By evening, it had 12,000. Monday morning, I got a message. Not from CamberTech. From someone at a firm called Westgate Systems. Mid-sized logistics software. Clean branding. Direct language. Hi, Mike. I read your Medium piece. We've had similar issues with workflow silos. And honestly, your writing resonated. Would you be open to a chat? At first, I wasn't sure I believed it. I thought it was bait, or a recruiter trolling for drama. But I checked her profile. Head of engineering, real company, real projects. I replied, sure. We spoke the next day. Her name was Priya. Let me be clear, she said right away. I'm not reaching out because of the drama. I'm reaching out because your system's thinking is clean and your voice is mature. That's rare. I laughed. Mature's one word for it. She smiled. You're not a kid. That's a good thing. She asked me to walk through the CamberTech dashboard mess. What I'd seen, how I fixed it, what trade-offs I'd made. I kept it high level but honest. By the end of the call, she said, we've been trying to hire someone to audit our internal flows for 6 months. No takers who understand cross-functional systems without acting like they're above the work. You in? I asked what the title was. Senior Systems Architect. Hybrid if you want it, remote if you don't. And the pay? She told me. It was double what CamberTech paid. I took the job. But not right away. First, I finished the ghost file. Not for revenge, for me. I turned it into a case study. Redacted names, changed company branding, but the flow stayed the same. Problem, context, action, outcome, credits, or lack thereof. I posted it quietly in a professional Slack group I was part of. A small one, mostly mid-career tech folks tired of burnout and politics. The feedback surprised me. People started messaging me. This exact thing happened at my last job. You just explained my last year better than I ever could. They called me a team player right up until I asked for a raise. And then, would you be willing to speak to our team about systemic underpromotion? That one came from a nonprofit out in Portland, I said yes. Then another invite, a corporate podcast, then a career coaching newsletter. Someone turned the post into a LinkedIn carousel. Suddenly, my quiet little confession had legs. Meanwhile, Camber Tech kept pretending nothing happened, but you could tell it was hitting a nerve. A week after my post crossed 50K views, Tara updated her LinkedIn to say she led cross-functional taxonomy rebuilds across product teams. Leo shared an article about servant leadership without context. Darren disappeared from the org chart entirely, moved on to pursue new opportunities. I never said a word about them, never needed to. The silence was loud enough. Westgate turned out to be what I thought Camber Tech might have been. Small, smart, no nonsense. The first week on the job, Priya sent me a Notion link with all the internal systems, everything labeled, mapped, commented. "Do your worst," she wrote. I started slow. I asked dumb questions on purpose. Waited to see who got defensive. Nobody did. By the end of the first month, I'd proposed a structural update to their billing reconciliation process that cut processing time by 30%. They asked if I wanted to present it to the board. Me, the new guy. No gatekeeping. No middlemen. I said yes. Afterward, someone from finance messaged me. That was the cleanest explanation I've heard in years. I just replied, thanks. One night, Elise and I were walking the dogs around the neighborhood, and she asked, "Do you miss it at all?" "Camber Tech," I said. "Yeah." I thought about it. "No, but I miss the version of me who thought I could just do quiet work and be left alone." She smiled. "You always underestimate how loud your work is." I laughed. "Guess I do." Then she asked something else. "Would you ever tell the full story, names and all?" I paused. "No," I said. "I think I already did." She looked confused. "People don't need the villain's name to know the plot," I said. "They just need to know they're not crazy for noticing." She squeezed my hand. "Well, they know now. My daughter found my old Camber Tech hoodie while we were cleaning out the hallway closet. It was stuffed in the back, under a pile of unused tote bags and a broken umbrella I'd kept meaning to fix. "Hey, Dad, what's this?" she asked, holding it up. I looked at the faded logo on the chest. See, the minimalist slash they thought made them look edgy. "Oh," I said, "that's from a job I used to have." She put it on, oversized and boxy. "Can I keep it? It's comfy." I smiled. "Sure, just don't wear it to any interviews." She laughed. She's 12, still young enough to find me funny, old enough to know when I'm only half joking. I hadn't spoken to anyone from Camber Tech since the day I walked out. Not Leo, not Darren, not even Tara, who I'd once helped untangle a billing schema over an after-hours Zoom call while she cried quietly into her microphone. The company went quiet after my Medium post made the rounds. No cease and desist, no PR spin, just silence, which, in its own way, was more honest than I expected from them. But then, almost 3 months to the day after I left, I got an email from a name I didn't recognize. Subject: Internal audit request from Claudia Evans, external consultant, Camber Tech. Message: Hi Mike, I'm reaching out on behalf of Camber Tech as part of a third-party process audit concerning Q4 documentation practices and workflow changes. Your name came up in several archived files as a significant contributor. We'd appreciate 20 to 30 minutes of your time for historical context. I stared at the screen. Historical context. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd erased me in real time. Now they wanted my help to reconstruct the record. I forwarded the email to Priya at Westgate before I replied. She read it, then called me instead of texting. "You gonna do it?" she asked. I leaned back in my chair. "Would you?" Priya chuckled. "I wouldn't do it for them, but I might do it for the junior dev who has to clean up their mess." I paused. Yeah, I said. That's probably the right reason. Claudia was sharp. External contractor. Neutral tone. No corporate fluff. We scheduled a Zoom on a Wednesday afternoon. She was already in the call when I joined. Plain white background, neat hair, legal pad in hand. Thanks for agreeing to speak, she said. I want to be clear. This is not a disciplinary process. We're just trying to trace responsibility for some documentation gaps. Sure, I said. Let's get into it. For 30 minutes, I walked her through the exact systems I'd overhauled. The taxonomy, the support flows, the onboarding script cleanup, the internal CMS restructure. Every time I said, I built that, she nodded and added a note. Eventually, she asked, did you ever receive formal credit for these contributions? I smiled, flat. Depends on your definition of credit. Were you publicly acknowledged? Performance review? Title change? No, quite the opposite. Claudia tilted her head. That aligns with what I've seen. Several documents list Team CX or Product Ops as owners, but the style and revision trail are clearly yours. I didn't respond. She didn't need me to. After a moment, she added, I'm also seeing your work referenced in some pitch decks. That caught me off guard. Decks presented to who, but? I asked. Claudia checked her notes. Potential partners, VC updates. There's a slide titled Systems Optimization, Q3 Wins, that lists the dashboard revamp with impact metrics. And whose name is on that slide? Darren Lewis. Of course. After the call, I didn't feel angry, just finished. It felt like watching the credits roll on a show that never got renewed. You cared about the characters. You hated some of them. But once it's over, it's over. That night, I opened the Ghost file one last time. I changed the title to What I Did When No One Was Watching. Then I saved a PDF and closed the tab. Winter came fast that year. Elise started baking again. Banana bread, cinnamon rolls, her dad's old pecan pie recipe. Our daughter joined the robotics club at school and asked if I could help her build a portfolio site. I said yes. Work at Westgate was steady, fulfilling. I wasn't a savior there, just a part of the system. Priya made sure of that. Once a month, she'd check in and ask, still feeling seen? I'd nod and say, still good. In February, I got another email. This time from someone unexpected. Leo. Subject, quick note. Camber Tech. Mike, I know we didn't part on the best terms, but I wanted to reach out personally. Some changes happening internally. Darren's gone. We're rethinking how we treat cross-functional roles. You were right about a lot. Hope Westgate is treating you well. Leo. I read it twice. Then I archived it. Elise asked me once if I'd ever write a book about all of this. I told her maybe. But if I did, it wouldn't be a tell-all. It would be a guide. For people who've been quietly competent for too long. For the ones who get asked to clean things up but never get invited to the strategy table. For the ones whose name shows up in edit history, but not on the slide deck. There are more of us than you think. On the anniversary of my firing, I posted one last update on Medium. Just a short entry. A year ago, I was told I was overqualified. What they meant was, you make it hard for us to ignore what's broken. I didn't shrink. I didn't rage. I wrote it all down. And now I build things somewhere that knows how to say thank you. No hashtags, no tags, just that. I finally donated the Camber Tech hoodie, not because I needed the space, but because I no longer needed the reminder. It was a Saturday in March, one of those fake spring days in Wisconsin where the snow has melted just enough to trick you into optimism. My daughter was sorting old school supplies for a donation drive, and the hoodie was still hanging by the back door. I picked it up, folded it neatly, and added it to the pile. She looked at me. You sure? I nodded. Yeah, time to give someone else a fresh start. She smiled. Bet it's still got your magic on it. I laughed. I hope not. That kind of magic got me fired. I haven't checked CamberTech's LinkedIn page in months. At some point, it stopped mattering. The company is still around, I'm sure. Still posting agile quotes over stock photos. Still calling layoffs strategic reshuffles and ideas value unlocks. They'll survive. Most companies like that do. But the people inside, the quiet ones, the ones who do the invisible rewrites, I think about them more than I'd like to admit. Sometimes, I wonder if someone else took my desk. If they still use the hot desk by the kitchen with the buzzing monitor and the fake plant. If they inherited my login credentials and wondered why the documentation suddenly made sense. And sometimes, I hope they found my last message in the internal wiki. I never told anyone about it, not even Elise. It was just a comment, buried at the bottom of the internal dashboard manual I'd rebuilt, hidden inside a collapsible text box under the troubleshooting section. If you're reading this, and fixing things no one notices, I see you. Keep receipts. Stay kind. Don't shrink, M. It's still probably there, unless they wiped the file or overwrote the system. But I like to imagine it lived a little longer. That maybe someone found it after a long night cleaning up a broken onboarding flow. And maybe, just maybe, it made them feel less alone. Because that's the part no one tells you about being overqualified. It's not just that they don't want you to lead. It's that they don't know how to value what doesn't look like a promotion. They measure visibility, not velocity. My work at Westgate has shifted. I started as a systems architect. Now I lead a team of 5. None of them report to me in the classic sense. We work side by side. Analysts, doc writers, workflow designers. We build things. We fix things. We measure what matters. And every time one of them gets overlooked in a cross-team call, I stop the meeting and say, actually, I think this part came from Marlon. Let's make sure he gets the credit. It's not dramatic. It's not revenge. But it's something. Elise framed one of my medium quotes and put it above my desk without telling me. It reads, I didn't shrink. I didn't rage. I wrote it all down. I asked her why she picked that line. She said, because it's the first time you let the story end without needing to win. I didn't know what to say to that, so I kissed her hand and went back to writing. I've been mentoring a guy lately. 32, newly laid off, same story. Overworked, undercredited, told he wasn't a cultural fit right after he proposed a better CRM migration plan than his boss could understand. He found me through my writing. Am I overreacting? He asked in our first call. I told him no, but I also told him this. Be careful not to spend your whole life waiting to be seen. The work is real whether they clap or not, but your sanity depends on having a place that says thank you before you burn out. He nodded like it hurt to agree. I remembered what that felt like. I still write. Not every day, not for clicks, just essays here and there. Quiet things. Sometimes Elise reads them first. Sometimes my daughter does. And every so often, someone sends a message. I thought I was the only one. They never are. We are legion, the overqualified, the quiet fixers, the backstage architects, the ones who leave the system better than we found it, only to be told we don't belong there. But we do. We always did. And the funny part is, now that I've stopped trying to prove it, people seem to know. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.